Welcome back once again. As we earlier said, that we are going to be giving you a full coverage of today's electoral process, that is the runoff around in 19 constituencies in 7 governorates and competing for 35 seats. Of course, Egyptians are very enthusiastic and they are flocking since 9 a.m. to the ballots to cast their votes, and of course they are headed by women. And we are going to take, of course, the readings, not the exact readings, but our correspondence readings of the brackets in society of the people, the majority of citizens, who is more precise on casting their votes. Is it a bracket of youth? Is it a bracket of elderly? Is it a bracket of women? You name it. Of course, as we all know, that expats voted on Wednesday and Thursday, and the vote will take place of course today here in Egypt, Saturday and Sunday, and hopefully things are until this very moment is going at its best as they can. And we're very delighted to be also accompanied here in the studio by Dr. Mariam Waheed. She's Associate Professor, Faculty of Economics and Political Science in Cairo University. Good morning, Dr. Mariam.
Good morning.
It's really a pleasure to have you here because of your political insight and economic insight, and also because you are a close follower for exercising political rights when it comes to women. And I personally myself have had good experiences with you analyzing the important role of women when it comes to exercising political rights, a driving force in the streets, also in the referendum and in the presidential elections. Women they have a political awareness that would amaze everybody who probably don't know too much about Egypt. If you like to elaborate.
First of all, I would like to mention something about women's participation in elections and actually being in the political scene. Since 1956, women first began voting in Egypt, and we had the first 2 parliamentary parliamentarians, women parliamentarians, in 1957, Rawi Atiyah and Amina Shukri. And before, we didn't have any women parliamentarians, so that was the first time in 1957, and this was one of the first Arab countries for women's participation in the parliament as women parliamentarians. Then women actually started to vote more and more in elections and to become candidates also in the parliament. And we witnessed the massive increase in women in the parliament after the 2011 and 2013 revolutions, with women actually specifically in the 2015 parliament and the 2020 parliaments. With the quota mentioned exactly in the Constitution, specifically after the 2019 amendments of the Constitution, then we had women more and more, because it mentions specifically that we have 25% of women in the House of Representatives in Egypt, that these seats should be allocated only for women. So we witness more and more women in the parliament, and this is continuing till now, that we have a lot of women parliamentarians in the parliament in 2020 and in the 2025 parliament as well.
Right, but today, I mean, like you said, I really appreciate what you said, that the time by time they are improving. Even the Egyptian administration is giving women more space and more rights to be able to lead the scene. Especially President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, on many accounts, he have once, we recall it even more than once, like 4 or 3 times, saying, I nominate myself as a minister for women. He has a lot of passion to extend his hands for women and give them space to be able to take over leading decisive positions, and under the parliament. He eradicated the quota, and it's almost there is complete gender equality here in Egypt. But talking about the role of women today, we have seen the first part of the elections, and there was strong presence for women in some governorates, according to the geopolitical situation, and according to the population, and according to the time and everything. But talking about women today, observing the elections, how do you read it?
Women actually are present, as you mentioned, in a lot of political, the political scene in general. Women in voting, in parliamentary elections, women also as candidates. So I would like to talk more about women as candidates, because that's we're witnessing more and more women as candidates, and they are, even if some didn't have the chance to win, but it's nice that they are actually being represented, and they are not only, because in some, specifically, for example, in Upper Egypt, for ages that they did not take the chance to become candidates in elections. So we're witnessing the increase in this. So increasing women as candidates, even if it's a bit still hard for women actually to win seats in the individual seats, because it's more it's easier, it's much more easier through the list. Because we have in the electoral system in Egypt, we have a combination between the individual seats and the list. So it's a bit harder to win through the individual seats. But we actually witnessed some ladies who actually would get elected more than once. But it's still maybe because of the culture that, as I said, that we didn't have women in parliament except in the 1957. So it's a bit changing. The culture is changing for women to become actually as representatives. And because also, as you mentioned, the quota system, because we didn't have the quota system, women without a quota system in 1979 did not take except 2 or 2.5% only of the seats, if we mention the percentages. So the quota system is essential.
But then
we have this quota system till now, the 25%. But the idea is that...
But it was eradicated once. It was
eradicated for some time, but we didn't have the percentage again that it's 25% as now.
Some observers believe that the percentage is not fair for women. It is like gender inequality. We don't have a quota system for men. And let me add to something else I really want you to shed light on, which is, you talked about culture, which is a very important element. Culture in some governors, I mean, in some, there are some tribal governments, there are some heavily populated, there are some highly cultured, well-educated in the capital, and there are some governors that has history, and that's why they are well-educated and have culture, though that they are villagers, for example. So the diversity of the governorates and the geographical location of each government would define the people, the citizens in it. Let us talk about South Egypt. Everybody who've been observing Egypt politically have seen the majority of women with political awareness and the popularity of certain parliamentarians, women parliamentarians, that people, men and women, depend on and vote for. From your researches and statistics, if you'd like to shed more light over that.
That's true. That's what I mentioned, that the culture is changing a bit by bit. But the culture changes not like legislations, because legislations are much more faster, and the political will is pro having more women in the parliament and women in the political scene in general. So after the 2019 amendments, actually we witnessed women in the parliament, and actually people elected those women again and again, because they witnessed that they actually helped a lot the people. So that's why they elected them, but not only for the reason of the quota system, but because they witnessed their effort and their work on the ground. And that's not what's happening in Egypt only, but in a lot of actually European countries, that they started with the quota system for a while. That's not discrimination, that's considered positive discrimination, because it's not okay that we have only 2.5% of women in the parliament only. So that was also there in Finland, in France. They encouraged parties to have women in their quotas to become as women parliamentarians. So that's what we're witnessing, that several parliamentarians in Egypt, in Upper Egypt, that they were elected more than once, because they actually did a lot for the electorate and for the people.
Right, of course. But observing Egypt, you kindly stated the year 1957. It's a real way back. and also, but at the same time, it's way ahead other Arab countries.
Yes.
So we're doing more than fine.
Yes, and other African countries.
And African countries, they have great cultural background.
And if we compare it with
women. One of them, I think, president of I can't excuse me,
African countries
who grabbed the Nobel Peace Prize. And she's a president.
If we compare it also with other European countries, we're comparing with the US and the UK in 1918 and 1920. So that's not far from 1957. And the first country in the world to grant women the right to vote was New Zealand in the late 19th century. So that's it's not the idea that it's important that women actually struggled all over the world to gain the right to vote. It was not that easy.
But don't you think that even though that they did not step inside the parliament before, way before, or wasn't powerful enough, they changed reality on the ground through revolutions, through gatherings, through communities, through political institutions, and we have figures, very popular historical political figures that through history we remember women who have changed on the ground very important elements for the sake of human rights. If you like, also we need to take also a good look over the achievements of women over the years. It's not only the parliament that would change. There are other facets and other fronts that would change realities on the ground. Do you agree with that or no?
Sure, of course. And specifically because we were talking about politics, from ancient Egypt we had women as the queens of ancient Egypt, and there's a lot of those queens, not only Hatshepsut and Cleopatra. We have nearly 30 queens in ancient Egypt who were actually...
Ever since before history began for the world, they have led wars and they have conquered nations and continents.
Yes, and if we mention specifically, for example, in the 1919 revolution, with Sofia Zaghloul actually leading the revolution with her husband Saad Zaghloul against the British occupation of Egypt at that time. So actually in a lot of fronts and in a lot of spheres, economically, politically and socially and culturally, women were really active.
Right, and they are active in other sense also, is that they transfer this strength and this knowledge and this awareness to the siblings and the youngsters. Normally, because she is the, the caretaker of the family, because I'm talking about the normal women. I mean, people are staying at home. The man is working, is off to work, and she is controlling the minds and the will and the awareness of her youngsters, and that's why she transfers the values. If you like also to elaborate over that.
Yeah, of course, women as housewives, women as teachers, women as also judges, because we've witnessed also women recently that women have become in the state as judges in the state council, which is also a huge advancement, because they were seen like women were not suitable for being as judges or as in a lot of other or even as governors. So that's also a huge change.
Governors, judges and ministers also at the same time, and pilots and surgeons. Almost in every sphere. But then let us go back again to the very important political drive by women. If you take it, by many writers and political analysts and everything, who have observed the political scene ever since June 30th, they have said only one thing. One major thing they noticed is that the huge driving force of women on the street and also politically, there was a great presence for women. Without women, all those political changes wouldn't have been achieved. Do you agree or no?
Yes, yeah. If we were talking about since 2011 and 2013 revolutions, women were active in the protests and in the streets and calling for changes for the best of the society, and then they found more formal channels to participate in politics and actually to try to frame what they wanted in the society, and they started to vote. And since 2011 in the voting in the referendum and for changing the constitution, and then after drafting the constitution they were active even in the committee that drafted the constitution, and later on in the Parliament they are also active inside the standing committees inside the Parliament and taking positions as chairpersons in drafting the different laws and legislations, not only for women's rights but for the best of all society. And also later on they were active internationally also, a lot of women in science, in politics, in arts. Women have advanced a lot in the past few years.
Of course, talking about the driving force of women and taking the full chance to reflect their abilities, because they still have more abilities. Attaining decision-making positions like the 8 women ministers and all that. Is it 50% of it because we had a leader and we had head of the state who really believed in their abilities and their potentials, and they are able to do it, and he gave them space and he encouraged them. He opened the doors, the locked doors for them. When a leader is encouraging others, they give you the best in them. So how do you evaluate or how do you assess the role of the Egyptian administration, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, ever since he stepped into office, the way he handled this file, this gender equality file? How do you assess it?
Since 2017, this year was coined as the year for Egyptian women. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has encouraged a lot women to participate politically, and also that was a big encouragement for women to hold positions for the first time as governors, as deputy governors, even young women to become deputy governors, and also encouraging women to become parliamentarians with the 2014 constitution and also the amendments of the 2019, also to have women specifically that a percentage. This was the first time for women to be granted this percentage of 25% in the House of Representatives, and also 10% of also seats were allocated for women in the Senate. And even with the appointments of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, for a lot of women in the Senate elections, that even more than the percentage of the 10%. For example, in the 2020 Parliament, we had 20 women with the appointments of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi for women in the Parliament, in the Senate.
Exactly, and appointing women also in the Parliament.
Also for the appointments in
Last
the 28 appointments in the House of Representatives as well.
Right. So observing the current scene now, as we can see on the screen, lots of women and casting their votes, and they're keen. Especially when we take readings of the day and with our correspondents and observing the electoral process in general, we sort of like calculate the day, the timing. I mean, by working hours, then men are not around because they are, I mean, in rural areas, for example. Rural areas, there are good readings of the turnout. I mean, previous, I mean, the ballots that were not annulled. And at the same time, also in the early morning, it's the elderly citizens. And then throughout the whole day, it's women and youth. But women is the major common factor throughout the whole day. Women are existing in the early morning, during the day, and at night time, and densely populated.
Yes. And not only women who are not working, actually women, even if they have their jobs, they actually go and follow up what's going on in the elections. They're really more interested. They're not indifferent about politics. They want to follow up what's taking place. And right now we've been like nearly since November till now, so nearly we have 2 months of elections because of the runoff and because of the annulled districts. And so it's a long process. This specifically, this election is a really long one in Egyptian history that has been there for a long time. But till now we're seeing women actually voting.
And mentioning the long process of the long electoral process because of the annulment and everything, that would make us even feel more proud, because the Egyptian administration and the whole scene in Egypt, there is strong precision standing up to fraud, to illicit votes, or because of the irregularities. In California, there was fraud and there was irregularities at Donald Trump's elections, and the first phase. And during George W. Bush II, there was also fraud and there was irregularities. But here in Egypt, we insisted that we could repeat those and stand up to all attempts of fraud or any type of corruption or any type of irregularity that would happen inside and come in the way of a free choice by the people.
There's a big change also all over the world, because people are holding the cameras everywhere.
Social media.
So social media, the influence of social media, and also having their individual cameras, which is actually something positive and something negative. So in the case that we're talking about, it's positive that there were also calls for some changes that should take place, and if there's any kind of fraud or corruption, that we should deal with it, and that was dealt with with the decision of the High Administrative Court, and that those elections should be repeated again and again till there's no corruption.
Right. Actually. And actually also talking about the elections in general, how do you assess the turnout for other citizens, not only women?
We've seen that there's an increase of the elderly, as you mentioned, and regarding youth, that if we see the number of candidates, also there's an increase in youth in the parliament, and youth also are increasing their participation in the different political parties. We've witnessed also an increase in political parties since 2011 and 2013. Previously we had only one ruling party, but now if you have a look at the political scene in Egypt, we have different political parties with different ideologies and different...
And this diversification is very healthy also.
Yes, it's very important to have this multi-party system, that we have different parties contesting and having different ideologies, and even if they have similar ideologies, but they might have also different programs how to help the people, and also a change in the culture, which is really healthy, of the people also, that the parliamentarian is not only like giving them services, but they are keen also that they're drafting laws and legislations to help the public as a whole. And if we follow the 2020 parliament, for example, there's an increase in the number of legislations, and those legislations, for example, some of them were for a long time active, but actually with those changes this will help the people more and more.
Right, but also going back to that particular part, or focusing on that important part that you raised right now, which is what do people expect from the upcoming parliament and its members. It's not only services to be given to these citizens, but mainly it's their knowledge and acquaintance and awareness of legislations. And what is the element that has priority? We have priorities. People are waiting for the next parliament. We have priorities when it's coming to changing some laws. We have dire needs for some legislations. and people are awaiting that, and that's why they're putting all their hopes on the upcoming members. And that's why the head of state and the Egyptian administration have ordered that some constituents be annulled, so that we can have full transparency, give them full chance for citizens to choose their member of parliament on a free will, without any distortion or any pressure from anybody. But then talking about the assignments once this parliament is held, what do we expect from the upcoming parliament?
There was specifically, for example, the personal status law that it has been there for a long time, discussed by the people, by the National Council of Women. So there were some calls for changing the personal status law. That is one of the laws. And also what I expect also from the Senate, that because the Senate is only it's more of a consultative or an advisory chamber of the Parliament. But I think that there will be more discussions of also the treaties that will be held between Egypt and other foreign countries. Also there will be discussions for that in the Senate. So that is something that will be there in the upcoming period, because Egypt actually is fostering its relation with a number of countries around the world.
Hopefully the upcoming would satisfy all our needs, the upcoming parliament. We're going to go to a short break, and we'll come back to continue with Dr. Mariam Waheed, so stay with us.
Parliamentary life in Egypt has marked the history of Egyptian civilizations. In modern history, parliamentary life began as early as 1824, whilst representative parliamentary life only began in 1866. In 2016, Egypt celebrated the 150th anniversary of parliamentary life in the country. Since 2019, the Egyptian parliament has been bicameral, consisting of the House of Representatives as the lower house and the Senate as the upper house. We will explore the key stages in the evolution of the Egyptian parliament, whilst highlighting its positive contributions to Egyptian society. Egypt's parliamentary history dates back to 1923, with the establishment of the first House of Representatives, known as the Majlis al-Nuwab. This milestone marked the beginning of a democratic process, allowing Egyptians to actively participate in political decision-making. Parliament was designed to represent the diversity of opinions and interests within Egyptian society. In the 1950s, under the leadership of Gamal Abdel Nasser, Egypt underwent significant reforms. Although Parliament was temporarily suspended, this period was marked by social and economic development initiatives aimed at improving the lives of citizens. These reforms laid the foundation for greater political participation in the years to come. After Nasser's death in 1970, Anwar al-Sadat reinstated Parliament in 1976 with a new constitution. This move introduced a multi-party system, promoting greater representation of different political persuasions. The elections of this era were a pivotal moment in the establishment of a more dynamic political culture. The 2011 Egyptian Revolution was a major turning point in the country's political life. Citizens expressed their desire for change and reform. Parliament was dissolved several times after Mubarak's overthrow. The parliament elected in 2010 under Mubarak was dissolved by the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces in 2011. A new parliament was then elected in late 2011, early 2012. This parliament was dominated by Islamist political parties and later dissolved by the Supreme Constitutional Court in June 2012, then reinstated in July 2012. It was then dissolved again by order of the interim President Adli Mansour in 2013, after the popular ouster of the Muslim Brotherhood president. For 3 years, Egypt did not have a parliament, but in October to December 2015, elections were held for a new House of Representatives. The elected parliament is responsible for reviewing laws passed whilst parliament was not in session. Today, the Egyptian parliament is composed of 2 chambers, the House of Representatives and the Senate. This bicameral structure allows for in-depth discussion of laws and policies. Numerous initiatives have been launched to encourage citizen participation and strengthen the role of elected representatives. Outreach programs aim to educate the public on the importance of parliamentary life and civic engagement. Over the years, Parliament has played a vital role in passing laws aimed at improving the lives of Egyptians. Reforms in education, health and women's rights have been supported by parliamentary initiatives. These advances demonstrate the commitment of legislators to meet the needs of the population. The history of parliamentary life in Egypt is rich and dynamic, reflecting the aspirations of a people eager to be involved in shaping their future. As Egypt continues to evolve, Parliament remains a fundamental pillar of democracy and representation.
Welcome back once again. We're still on our coverage and our encounter with Dr. Mariam Waheed, which is live with us here in the studio. She's an associate professor, faculty of economics and political science, Cairo University. Welcome back, Dr. Mariam. We were assessing the whole achievements of not only women but the parliament. What do we expect from the upcoming parliament is a very important question, and maybe that's the reason why everybody and that is the reason for the annulment and for repeating again the electoral process. What is exactly expected from the upcoming parliament?
I would focus on also legislations regarding child rights, because there are also calls for changing the child law in Egypt, also some changes. So that's I think would be one of the main laws that will be changed in the upcoming parliament, besides also the personal status law. And we have witnessed changes in inheritance law, for example. That is something also was pro-women's rights more and more. And I think that in the upcoming period there will be also calls for some changes in the child law. The child law is one Egypt has been
lots of deficiencies,
and actually it's quite advanced, but because there are some deficiencies in some areas, and there were some things that happened recently, some cases also that would require also some penalties against people who commit any kind of violence against children. So that will be more harshening penalties against abusers. So that would be something that would be discussed in the upcoming parliament.
Hopefully, inshallah. Of course, Dr. Mariam Waheed, Associate Professor, Faculty of Economics and Political Science, Cairo University. Thank you so much for coming over. It has been a real pleasure having you here today.
Thank you very much.
All the best
Pleasure is
to you.
mine.